My name is Olivia Mercer, and I'm 29 years old. The night my boyfriend said, I'm ending this, but I'll be keeping the apartment since the lease is in my name, I didn't scream, beg, or even pause the show I was half watching. Instead, something inside me went very still, like a snapped chalk line hanging in the air for one suspended heartbeat before the blue dust settles into a perfectly straight edge. On one side of that line was the life I'd been living. On the other side was the life I was about to choose. Aiden stepped in front of the TV, blocking the glow. The remote was still warm in my hand. He stood there like he was about to deliver a weather alert. I need to talk to you about us, he said, voice grave, eyes wide, like he was bracing for my tears. Never a good forecast. I clicked the TV off and set the remote on the coffee table I'd bought. The sectional couch I'd bought creaked slightly as I shifted. The lamp I'd bought hummed softly in the corner. It was funny, in a not funny way, how much of this place was me. Okay, I said, talk. He exhaled like he'd been rehearsing this in a mirror. I've been doing a lot of thinking, Liv, and I don't think this is working for me anymore. I need to explore who I am without being in a relationship. His words fell in neat, prepackaged sentences like a script he'd printed off the internet. I stared at him for a moment, and in my chest, I felt that chalk line stretch taut. Fine, I said quietly. Breakups happen. Aiden blinked, like he'd expected screaming, or sobbing, or at least a thrown cushion. But here's the thing, he continued, pushing past my calm like it wasn't real. Since the lease is in my name, I'll be keeping the apartment. You'll need to move out by the end of the month. And there it was. I sat there for a second, processing. The apartment we'd lived in together for nearly a year, the security deposit I had paid, the first month's rent I had paid while he was between jobs, every stick of furniture, every plate, every appliance I had bought because his money was tight while his credit recovered. So, I said slowly, you're breaking up with me and kicking me out. I'm not kicking you out, he said quickly. Don't be dramatic. I'm just exercising my legal right to the apartment. The lease is in my name. That's just how it is. It's not personal. Not personal. He was untethering me from the roof over my head, and it wasn't personal. I let my eyes drift around this two-bedroom place. The $3,200 sectional couch I'd spent 2 weekends comparing online reviews for. The 65-inch OLED TV I'd bought as a promotion gift to myself. The entire kitchen setup. The mixer, the air fryer, the pots, the espresso machine he used every morning like it had materialized from nowhere. My gaming monitor in the corner, my desk, my office chair, my bookshelf, my rugs. Right, I said, nothing personal. He followed my gaze, but not the math. Exactly, you get it. What about all the furniture, the TV, everything I bought? I asked, keeping my voice level, curious, like I was asking a survey question. Aiden actually laughed. Olivia, it's in the apartment, so it stays with the apartment. Don't be petty about some furniture. Petty. The word floated there for a beat, then fell neatly on my side of the chalk line. I nodded slowly. I see. He misread that nod as surrender, or maybe he only knew how to read one thing. Olivia will handle it. I'd been handling things since the beginning. When we first moved in, it had been just until he got a better job. His credit was still recovering from some medical debt and a few bad decisions in my early 20s. Mine had been spotless. The landlord ran both our reports and said, we can put both names on the lease, but his score is going to spike the deposit. Aiden had shifted in his seat, embarrassed. I'd felt a little protective. It's okay, I'd said back then, smiling at the leasing agent. We can just put it in his name. I'll cover the security deposit and first month's rent. That's easier, right? Sure, the agent had said, tapping keys. If you're comfortable with that. I had been. I'd told myself it didn't matter whose name was on what. We were a team. So the lease went in Aiden's name. I wired over the deposit and first month's rent from my savings. He promised to pay me back when things stabilized. I told him not to worry. Then came the furniture, the plates, the glasses, the kitchen gadgets that made life convenient and Instagrammy. He was between jobs. I had been at my company for 6 years, a logistics analyst with a decent salary and a dangerous belief that love meant filling in the gaps. I started keeping receipts out of habit, like I always did, stuffed into a labeled folder in my home office, another thing I'd bought. Apartment expenses 2024. It was my way of tracking my budget, of making sure I wasn't bleeding savings faster than I could pretend not to notice. I never thought those receipts would become weapons. Back in the present, Aiden's expression softened when I didn't explode. I knew you'd understand, he said, sitting down on the edge of the couch. My couch. You're always so reasonable. We can do this like adults. You'll find another place. I'll stay here. We don't have to make it ugly. The chalk dust settled. Yeah, I said. Makes sense. His shoulders dropped in relief. See? I knew you'd be mature about this. I watched him, the way his chest puffed up a little, like he'd just navigated a difficult business negotiation with grace. In his head, he'd just successfully traded me for an apartment he hadn't paid for. End of the month? I asked. Yeah, he said. Gives you plenty of time. Plenty, I echoed. He patted my knee like I was a coworker who'd taken bad news well. I'm gonna go meet up with the guys. Give you some time to process. Sure, I said. He grabbed the keys to the car I'd co-signed for and left, whistling as he went. The door clicked shut. The apartment sighed into silence. I sat there, staring at the blank TV screen. The edges of the room felt unnaturally sharp, as if someone had turned up the contrast on my life. Kicking me out wasn't personal. Keeping everything I'd paid for wasn't petty. Only I would have been, if I objected. His name on the lease was law. My money had just evaporated into us. I stood slowly and walked down the short hallway to the second bedroom, the one we called the office, but mostly used for storage, and Aiden's guitar he almost never played. My filing cabinet sat in the corner, plain and unremarkable. I opened the top drawer, slid back a stack of warranty pamphlets, and pulled out the thick, bursting folder labeled Apartment Receipts. I carried it back to the living room and set it gently on the coffee table. One by one, I fanned the papers out. Sectional couch, TV, TV mount, coffee table, dining table and chairs, bed frame and mattress topper, dresser, nightstands, lamps, KitchenAid mixer, air fryer, blender, espresso machine, pots and pans, dishes, silverware, smart thermostat, smart bulbs, doorbell camera, router and modem. $15,000, give or take. I flipped through them with the cool detachment of an auditor. Every line item was a little note I'd written to my future self. You did this. You built this. You? Aiden thought this apartment was his because his name was on the lease. I looked around again. Really looked this time. The apartment itself was nothing special. Beige walls, standard fixtures, builder-grade carpet. Without all the things I'd brought into it, it would be just another unit in a complex full of identical boxes. He wanted the box. The contents? Those were mine. My phone buzzed on the table. A text from Aiden. Aiden, I know that was a lot. Thanks again for being so calm. I knew you'd get it. Let's keep things chill, okay? I stared at the message until the edges of my vision blurred. Okay, I murmured. I picked up my phone and scrolled to a contact I hadn't called in months. Jake, Moving Co. Jake and I had gone to high school together. He'd started his own moving company a few years back, hustling weekends until it became his full-time gig. The last time we'd spoken, I'd joked that if I ever needed to disappear fast, I knew who to call. I pressed the call button. He answered on the second ring. Olivia Mercer. Haven't heard that name in a while. What's up? I looked around the apartment one more time, feeling the chalk line solidify beneath my feet, dividing what used to be from what would never be again. Hey, Jake, I said, my voice steady. I need your biggest truck and a couple of guys. When? He asked. I glanced at the clock on the microwave, another thing I'd bought. Tomorrow morning, I said. I'll pay cash. There was a beat of silence, then a low whistle. Everything okay? I let my eyes travel over the couch, the TV, the kitchen, the office door, slightly ajar, the folder of receipts spread like evidence on the table. It will be, I said. I'm moving out of an apartment my boyfriend's keeping, so I'm taking everything that's mine. Jake chuckled, not quite understanding the storm he'd just been invited into. You always did know how to make an exit. I smiled, though he couldn't see it. Oh, Jake, I said softly, like you have no idea. When I hung up, the apartment felt different. Not like a home I was losing, but like a set I was about to strike. Aiden thought he was keeping the apartment. He had no idea he'd just gifted me permission to take back everything that made it worth living in. The chalk line was drawn. Tomorrow, I would start erasing my side from this place, one receipt at a time. By 7:58 a.m. the next morning, I was standing in the kitchen of the apartment I no longer lived in, wearing jeans, hair tied back, folder of receipts open like a battle plan. Aiden had left for work at 8 sharp, as predictable as the weather app on his phone. I'd watched him drive off from the window, coffee mug in hand. He'd even kissed my forehead before leaving, murmuring, I really appreciate how mature you're being about all this, Liv. Mature. The word had echoed in my skull as I'd locked the door behind him and set my mug down on the counter I'd bought. By 10 a.m., the moving truck rumbled into the parking lot. Jake hopped out first, ball cap backward, clipboard in hand, two of his guys following behind him. "Morning, Liv," he said, eyeing the building. "So this is the battleground?" "Something like that," I said. "We're taking everything that's mine, everything." He raised a brow. "You mean like furniture or everything, everything?" I flipped open my folder, showing the neatly tabbed receipts. "I mean everything, everything. If my card paid for it, it's going on that truck." Jake let out a low whistle. "All right then, General Mercer, lead the way." We started in the living room. The sectional couch, mine. The coffee table, mine. The rug, mine. The TV stand and 65-inch OLED, definitely mine. The TV had been a gift to myself after I'd closed a major contract at work. I even had a photo of the delivery receipt with my name and date printed on it. The movers were efficient, careful, and amused. "Guess this guy's gonna come home to a model unit," one of them muttered, unhooking the curtains. "That's the plan," I said. "Leave it looking like a rental brochure." By noon, the dining table, chairs, lamps, and bookshelf were gone. The sound of packing tape ripping across cardboard filled the air. I moved through the rooms methodically, almost surgical in my focus. In the kitchen, I unplugged the espresso machine, wrapped it in a towel, and slid it into its box. The air fryer, toaster, blender, and stand mixer followed. The drawers, once filled with utensils and silverware, stood hollow. When I reached the spice rack, I hesitated. Tiny glass jars labeled with neat handwriting. From the weekend, Aiden and I had played domestic chefs and ended up ordering takeout. I smiled faintly, then swept them into a box. I'd bought them. Even the shower curtain came down, replaced by the flimsy one that had come with the apartment, still folded in plastic. I swapped out the smart thermostat for the cheap original stored in the closet. By 1:30 p.m., the apartment was echoing. Bare floors, white walls, nothing but sunlight and the faint scuff marks of where my furniture used to be. Jake leaned against the doorframe, wiping sweat from his brow. "You sure you want to take all of it?" I nodded. "Every bit of it." He said everything in the apartment stays with the apartment, so I'm taking my things out of it. Jake grinned. "Cold, I like it." "It's not cold," I said quietly. "It's fair." We loaded the final box, my office supplies, router, and modem. I'd even replaced the ISP's cheap plastic router when we moved in. Why shouldn't I take the better one I'd bought? By 2 p.m., the apartment looked staged for a showing. Just 4 blank walls, beige carpet, and sunlight. The movers gathered by the truck. Jake gave me a look, half proud, half pitying. "You're handling this like a pro." "I learned from the best," I said, lifting my phone to show the doorbell camera feed. I'd recorded everything. Timestamps, calm voices, careful packing. He chuckled. "Never change, Liv. Where to now?" "My new place," I said. "Studio across town. Lease signed this morning." I'd found it late last night, scrolling listings while the apartment hummed with silence. Smaller, yes, but clean, bright, and mine. We drove across town in a convoy of trucks. When we unloaded, I arranged everything with almost reverent precision. The couch against the wall, the TV centered, the coffee table aligned with the rug's pattern, the espresso machine gleaming on the counter. By 5 p.m., it looked like a home, a smaller version of the life I'd built, only purified of the person who'd mistaken it for his own. I texted Aiden. "Olivia, moved out as requested. Keys are on the kitchen counter." He replied within minutes. "Aiden, thanks for being mature about this. I appreciate it." I stared at the message, thumb hovering. Then I set my phone down and made myself a coffee with the reclaimed espresso machine. For a brief, quiet moment, the bitterness tasted like peace. It didn't last. At 6:47 p.m., my phone exploded with notifications. "Aiden, what the hell did you do?" "Aiden, where is everything?" "Aiden, this is theft. I'm calling the police." "Aiden, you can't do this." Then came 23 missed calls. Finally, a voicemail. I pressed play. "Olivia, you psychotics," he was screaming. "You took everything. There's nothing here, not even a fork. Where am I supposed to sleep? What am I supposed to eat with? You even took the toilet paper holder. Call me back right now, or I'm calling the cops." I exhaled slowly, sipping my coffee, then typed one line back. "Olivia, I took my belongings as requested. The apartment is all yours now. Enjoy exploring who you are." He didn't reply, but 30 minutes later, headlights washed over the blinds of my new studio. Through my doorbell camera, Yes, I'd already installed one. I saw two police officers approach. I opened the door calmly. "Evening, ma'am," one of them said. "We got a report of stolen property." "Of course," I said, and gestured to my kitchen table. "Would you like to see receipts?" I had them all, paper and digital. I showed the officers each one, alongside screenshots of Aiden's texts saying, "Since the lease is in my name, I'll be keeping the apartment." The older cop chuckled. "So you took your property from an apartment you were told to vacate?" "Exactly," I said. He tipped his hat slightly. "Ma'am, this is a civil matter. You can't steal your own property. If he has an issue, he can take it to small claims." When they left, I watched their cruiser roll away and felt the faintest tremor of adrenaline slip into something steadier. By 8:30, Aiden's name was blocked on my phone. But at 9:15, I got another call from the apartment complex. "Miss Mercer," said a polite male voice. "This is Mr. Peterson, the building manager. We received a report from Mr. Aiden Miller about vandalism. He's claiming you removed fixtures?" "I removed my belongings," I said evenly. "The apartment still has all its original fixtures." There was a pause. "The thermostat?" "I installed a smart one. I replaced it with the original. It's there." "The blinds?" "Replaced with the originals from storage. I kept them clean." Mr. Peterson sounded half impressed, half bewildered. "I have to say, I've never seen anyone document a move-out this thoroughly." "Thank you," I said. When the call ended, I stood in my new kitchen, and exhaled. Across town, Aiden was probably pacing his empty apartment, surrounded by nothing but beige carpet and a mattress. He thought he'd kept the apartment. What he really kept was a box. Everything that made it a home had left with me. And this time, none of it was coming back. Part 3. By the next morning, the quiet satisfaction had faded into the low hum of online chaos. My phone lit up with notifications like a storm radar. Tags, mentions, messages. Aiden had gone public. His post started simple, just a block of text over a photo of the bare apartment walls. Some people can't handle rejection. Imagine being so petty that you strip an entire apartment because your fragile ego can't take being dumped. Financial abuse is real. Within hours, the comments piled up. "Wow, what a psycho." "She left him with nothing?" "Girl boss gone wrong." His friends rallied behind him. People I'd hosted for dinner, loaned money to for emergencies. Even Megan, his coworker turned confidant, commented, "So messed up, you deserve better, Aiden." I just scrolled, expressionless. Then I opened my notes app. Receipts folder total, $15,247. Text screenshot, "Since the lease is in my name, I'll be keeping the apartment." Photo, my new place, furnished, bright, peaceful. 3 images, 1 caption. "When he keeps the apartment, but you keep everything else. My stuff, my choice." I posted it. Within a day, my post overtook his. People love justice stories when they're tidy and documented. By that evening, the tone had changed. Comments rolled in under my post instead. "Queen of receipts." Taking notes for my next breakup. Not petty, precise. But Aiden wasn't done. He texted me from an unknown number. Unknown. "You think this is funny? You made me look like a loser online." Me. "I didn't have to make you look like anything." He didn't respond. Instead, Megan did. Megan. "Aiden's staying with me because you left him with nothing." Me. "He has his clothes and a mattress. I only took what I bought." Megan. "He can't even make coffee. You took the coffee maker." Me. "I bought the coffee maker." Megan. "Normal people split things." Me. "Normal people don't tell their partner to leave and then expect to keep everything they paid for." There was a long pause before her next message. "Megan, you're heartless. He's talking to a lawyer." I smiled. "Perfect," I whispered. "He'll need one." The next day, the phone rang again. This time, a number I recognized. "Hello?" "Olivia, it's Diane, Aiden's mom." Her voice was careful, polite. She'd always liked me. Holiday dinners, birthdays, those gentle, "you're good for him" comments that had once meant something. "Hi, Diane," I said evenly. "What happened, sweetheart? Aiden says you emptied the apartment." "I did," I said. "He broke up with me and told me to move out because the lease was in his name. So I did. And I took the things I paid for." She sighed heavily. "He says you took everything, even the kitchen supplies." "That's true." "Well," she said after a pause, "where's he supposed to live?" "In the apartment he wanted to keep," I said. "He made it clear it was his, so I left it that way." Silence, then quietly, "How much did you spend on all that?" "About $15,000 over the past year." A long exhale. "And he expected you to just leave it?" "Apparently." Another silence, Longer this time, softer somehow. Well, she finally said, that was short-sighted of him, and hung up. That evening, I poured a glass of wine and watched the sky turn orange outside my new window. It should have ended there. But Saturday morning, just after 7 a.m., came the pounding. Not knocking, pounding. I checked my doorbell camera feed. Aiden, and two large men I didn't recognize standing on either side of him like hired muscle. I pressed the intercom. Can I help you? He looked up at the camera, face flushed. Open this door right now. We're getting my stuff. Your stuff isn't here, I said evenly. The furniture is mine. We live together, he shouted. It's communal property. We weren't married, I replied. I have receipts. Just open the door, one of the men said, trying to sound friendly. Let's sort this out. I don't know you, I said. If you don't leave, I'm calling the police. Aiden barked a laugh. Go ahead. I'll tell them you stole everything. So I did. 10 minutes later, the cops arrived. They separated us immediately, me on one side of the hallway, Aiden and his cousins on the other. Ma'am, do you have proof of ownership? One officer asked. Yes, I said, handing him my folder and phone. Receipts for everything I moved. Doorbell footage from the day. Text where he told me to leave. The officer nodded, flipping through the documents, then turned to Aiden. Sir, do you have proof any of this property belongs to you? Aiden stammered. We live together. That's proof enough. It's common law marriage. The officer frowned. This state doesn't recognize common law marriage. Without receipts, you don't have a claim. One of his cousins rubbed the back of his neck, whispering something I couldn't hear. Then he turned to me. She told us you robbed her, he said quietly. Didn't realize you had all this documentation. I keep records, I said. It's a habit. They exchanged looks, then walked away, leaving Aiden behind. He shouted after them. Where are you going? Home, one said. You lied to us. When they were gone, Aiden stood there in the hallway, vibrating with humiliation. This isn't over, he spat. It never really started, I said, and shut the door. Through the camera, I watched him pace, curse, then finally leave. That night, I curled up on my couch, and let the quiet settle. But even then, I knew it wasn't the end. People like Aiden didn't accept consequences. They just escalated until they tripped over their own lies. And by Monday, he'd be reaching for the next ledge. Monday morning came with the faint ring of my phone and a new kind of calm, one that comes only when you've already lived through the explosion. The number flashing on my screen was unknown, but the voice was unmistakable. Olivia Mercer? The man asked, brisk and formal. This is a process server. You've been named in a civil complaint. I smiled without teeth. Of course I have. He delivered the envelope in person. Thin, white, official-looking. I accepted it like someone receiving an award. Inside, plaintiff, Aiden Miller. Defendant, Olivia Mercer. Claims: theft of communal property, emotional distress, loss of peaceful enjoyment of residence. Damages sought, $20,000. I actually laughed out loud. $20,000. He was suing me for more than I'd spent. By noon, I was sitting in my friend Ben's office downtown. He was a lawyer I'd gone to college with, the kind of person who always looked amused by chaos. Ben scanned the papers, eyebrows raised. Let me guess. He has no receipts? None. Ben leaned back in his chair, smirking. This is going to be embarrassing for him. He's counting on drama, I said, not evidence. Ben nodded. Then we'll give him neither. I'll file a response and request dismissal. You won't even need to testify unless he pushes it. I thanked him, and when I left his office, the city sunlight felt sharper somehow, like clarity itself. By Wednesday, the building manager, Mr. Peterson, called again. Miss Mercer, he said, you might want to know, Mr. Miller hasn't paid rent for November. He's been served a pay or quit notice. I blinked. But rent was due before I moved out. Exactly, Peterson said. He told us he couldn't afford it because you stole his money by taking the furniture, which is not how rent works. A dry laugh escaped me. Thank you for letting me know. Oh, and one more thing, he added. We did a surprise inspection. The apartment's in perfect condition. Frankly, cleaner than most move-outs. I smiled, glad to hear it. That night I got another call. Diane again. Olivia, sweetheart, she began softly. I'm sorry to bother you, but Aiden, he's being evicted. That's unfortunate, I said. He says it's because you took everything, she continued. He says he can't live there without the furniture. Rent is the same whether the apartment's furnished or not, Diane. A long pause. You're right. She sighed. He quit his job, you know. What? 2 weeks ago, she said wearily. Said he was going to manifest his dream life. Told his father he was done with corporate oppression. I pinched the bridge of my nose. So he quit before breaking up with me. Yes, he thought you'd keep paying half the rent until he got clarity. I laughed quietly. Why would I pay rent on a place I can't live in? That's what I asked him. He said it was your responsibility to make sure he was comfortable. Even Diane couldn't hide the disgust in her tone. Thank you for telling me, I said gently. When we hung up, I sat there for a long time, staring at the steam curling from my mug. I'd loved Aiden once, or maybe I'd loved the version of him that existed before entitlement calcified into delusion. Now, all that was left was a man blaming the world for the consequences of his own choices. Still, he showed up to court 3 weeks later, hair slicked, jaw tight, wearing a charcoal suit 2 sizes too formal for small claims. I wore a navy blouse, slacks, and calm. The judge, a middle-aged woman with sharp eyes, looked unimpressed before either of us spoke. Mr. Miller, she began, you're alleging theft and emotional distress? Yes, Your Honor, Aiden said confidently. We built a home together. Everything in that apartment was ours. She vindictively stripped it bare to punish me. The judge leaned forward. Were you and Ms. Mercer married? No. Did you have a written agreement about property? No, but there was an understanding. The judge nodded once, jotting notes. Ms. Mercer? Ben stood, straightening his tie. Your Honor, my client has receipts for every single item she moved. She also has text messages from Mr. Miller stating, and I quote, "Since the lease is in my name, I'll be keeping the apartment." She complied with his request to vacate, removing her personal belongings during daylight hours, recorded and documented. Police verified no crime occurred. We request dismissal with prejudice. The judge scanned the documents, flipping through pages, occasionally glancing at Aiden. Finally, she held up one sheet. Mr. Miller, is this your text message? He swallowed. Yes, but... And this one where you say, everything in the apartment stays with the apartment? Is this also yours? He hesitated. Yes, but I didn't mean... The judge lowered her glasses. Mr. Miller, meaning is irrelevant when your words are this specific. You told her to vacate and claimed all contents of the apartment as yours. She did exactly as instructed, taking only her property. Case dismissed. Defendant is awarded court costs. Aiden's face drained of color. This isn't fair. She left me with nothing. The judge's pen clicked against the desk. You left yourself with nothing when you assumed ownership of things that weren't yours. Next case. The gavel hit once, crisp and final. Outside, Diane waited in the hallway. She looked at me first. Not coldly, not kindly, just human. I'm sorry about all this, she said quietly. You didn't deserve that. Thank you, I said. Then Aiden appeared, his face thundercloud dark. Mom, whose side are you on? The side that didn't quit their job to manifest while expecting someone else to pay their bills, she said, and walked away. They argued down the corridor until their voices disappeared into the hum of the courthouse. I stepped out into the afternoon light, the folder of receipts tucked under my arm one last time. For the first time in months, it felt like I was carrying nothing at all. Part 5. 2 months later, my life looked entirely different and beautifully, peacefully ordinary. No drama, no pounding on my door, no shouting in hallways or frantic phone calls from police. Just quiet mornings, the smell of coffee from my espresso machine, and sunlight filtering across my furniture. Across town, Aiden's world had crumbled exactly the way Diane warned it would. He'd been evicted within weeks of losing the court case. The complex re-rented the apartment immediately. Word was, the new tenants moved in and found it spotless, eerily empty, one of them wrote in a community post, which someone later tagged me in. Apparently, they'd found an old envelope of his unopened mail. One of them messaged me. Hey, random question. Did you used to live here? Because we just read about you online. This apartment's drama is legendary. I laughed out loud. It is, isn't it? I typed back. Meanwhile, Aiden had moved back in with his parents. Diane made him get a job at a call center, charging him rent for his old bedroom. His father, Robert, quietly froze his access to the family credit card. The universe has a way of balancing ledgers. A few weeks later, screenshots of his dating app profile started circulating. His bio boasting, entrepreneur, visionary. My apartment was featured in a viral story. The photos? My old furniture, my decor, my layout. People recognized it instantly. Someone commented, "Isn't this the apartment your ex took everything from? Bro, at least update your scenery." The internet did what it does best, ate him alive. His account disappeared the next day. And me? I got promoted at work. Without the emotional static of his chaos, my focus returned sharp as glass. My small studio felt like freedom, not loss. Every item in it had a story. a reclaimed piece of a life I'd rebuilt on my own terms. Then there was Noah. I met him at a friend's engagement party. Steady, unpretentious, the kind of man who didn't flinch when women spoke with certainty. He asked what I did for work. I told him I managed logistics for a regional distributor. He smiled. So you're the one who keeps things from falling apart. It wasn't meant as flirtation, but it landed like one. Within weeks, he'd invited me over to his place, an actual house, small but well kept. Furniture he'd bought himself. Tools neatly organized in the garage. When I saw the espresso machine on his counter, I laughed. Don't worry, he said, grinning. This one's definitely mine. For the first time in years, I let myself feel safe in someone's space without imagining receipts or documentation. One night, as we cooked dinner together, Noah asked casually, "Do you ever regret taking everything?" I thought about it, the endless boxes, the glares, the courthouse, the noise. Then I smiled. The only thing I regret, I said, is not taking pictures of his face when he walked in. He laughed, that full-bodied kind of laugh that fills a room instead of cracking it. Remind me never to cross you. Deal, I said. Weeks passed. Life stayed quiet. Then, one afternoon, my LinkedIn pinged. A message from Robert Miller. Olivia, I wanted to personally apologize for my son's behavior. Diane showed me the court records and the receipts. I'm ashamed of how he treated you. We've required him to attend therapy and prove financial independence for a full year before dating again. Thank you for showing restraint and not pressing charges. You did more for his character than we ever could. Robert. I sat back, reading it twice. Then I typed a brief reply. Thank you, Robert. I hope he learned something from all this. He responded almost immediately. He's learning, slowly. He asked us to buy him new furniture. We told him to check Facebook Marketplace. Said it was beneath him. He's currently sitting on a lawn chair, using a cardboard box as a desk. Maybe a few more months of that will help. I couldn't help but smile. There was something poetic about that image, Aiden manifesting comfort from a lawn chair. But I didn't feel triumph anymore, just distance, clarity. I didn't hate him. I nothinged him. He had been a lesson in entitlement, in boundaries, in how quiet revenge can be when you let the truth do the talking. That evening, I made dinner in my tidy kitchen. Pasta, garlic butter, simple things that tasted like stability. Then I poured myself coffee from the same espresso machine he used to claim as ours. The steam curled into the air like punctuation. Every morning when I used it, I remembered the day I packed it up, the day I stopped apologizing for owning what I earned, the day I stopped mistaking patience for weakness. Outside, the sun dipped low, tinting everything gold. I leaned against my counter, smiling to myself, and thought, he wanted the apartment all to himself. He got exactly that. Just the apartment. Nothing more, nothing less. And me? I got everything that mattered.